Don't mess with Earth. They guard something even worse. These words, this very warning, were left by every advanced extinct civilization in the galaxy. 18 different species, separated by millions of years and unimaginable distances, left the same final message before disappearing entirely. IX stared at the new warning crystal, its tentacles twitching restlessly. As the galaxy's most renowned archaeologist, he had personally discovered the remains of 17 extinct civilizations. All of them far more advanced than Earth. All of them approached Earth, and all of them were completely destroyed, but not before leaving this same cryptic warning, etched into virtually indestructible materials. Let me guess, he relayed to his research partner, Nos Beta 9, a quantum consciousness housed in what looked very much like a decorative soap dispenser. They're going to mention Earth, aren't they? The crystal pulsed with ancient light as it activated, projecting a holographic message that had waited millions of years to be discovered. Archivist Sienna appeared, his crystalline form intact in the recording. X began his standard documentation procedure, already knowing what awaited him. Whoever gets this message, the hologram began with that unique mixture of horror and meticulous bureaucracy that seemed universal to all species. We leave this warning regarding Sector 47 by 23, specifically the third planet of the yellow star system. They call it Earth. They guard something even worse. No, explore, do not approach. We discovered this too late. At least it gave us time to fill out the appropriate forms before our extinction. X's limbs sagged limply. That's 18 now, he noted in his journal. 18 advanced civilizations. 18 warnings about Earth, 18 mentions of something even worse, and 18 well-written reports of their own extinction. I'm already seeing a pattern, 19 in fact, Nos Beta 9 interrupted, his hull glowing excessively. You've forgotten the collective protocol, though technically they left their warning in some kind of interphasic interpretive dance. The waste crystal flickered again, and the archivist's image reappeared with something like a P.S. addendum. For archival purposes, please classify this warning as apocalyptic hazards, subdivision Gamma, Form X789b. We would like to classify it as Omega-level existential hazards, but the paperwork was too extensive given our impending extinction. Gue stared at the hologram for a long moment before adding a note to his personal journal. I found another warning about Earth, but more importantly, who designed these data storage systems? And why do all the lost civilizations use the same one? What troubled Quiggs most wasn't just the warnings themselves, but their incredible consistency. Messages from the Meridian Collective ranged from, we've discovered a promising solar system for colonization, to, native species detected, primitive but alarming, and culminated with the final message, stay away from Earth, they're guarding nothing but the same standardized file code. Most alarming was the technological disparity. Every civilization that issued a warning was far more advanced than humanity in 1900, when it went extinct. And yet, Earth's defenders always emerged victorious, despite the apparent primitiveness of their technology. The accumulating evidence finally prompted the Galactic Research Council to do what bureaucracies do best, form a committee. After reviewing Earth's data, they assembled what they believed to be the best team of experts. Although, best, might be a slight exaggeration. Zeiss examined the final warning crystal again, noticing how it projected a strange expression onto the frozen Zishin's face. It wasn't quite fear, and not quite awe, but something in between. Whatever humans were guarding, Zishin's dread of the end had transformed into something entirely different. You know what's really starting to worry me, he relayed to Nos Beta 9, swaying his limbs thoughtfully. All these civilizations had time to leave a warning. Who would stop in the midst of their own extinction to do paperwork? The question hung in the air of his research vessel, unanswered, but increasingly pressing. Because tomorrow, Itati X would lead the first official expedition to Earth to discover what exactly humans were guarding, the very mission that had destroyed 18 advanced civilizations. What could be so terrifying that it would require an entire planet populated by seemingly primitive creatures to contain it? And why did every species that discovered the truth find time to leave a warning? But not to save themselves, The archives of the Galactic Historical Society were becoming increasingly fascinating to peruse, at least for those who appreciate apocalyptic bureaucracy. Every documented encounter with Earth followed an almost comically predictable pattern, as if the universe itself were staging a dark comedy. Take the Meridian Collective, for example. Their first report stated, "We have discovered a solar system promising for colonization." The second, "Native species discovered that appear primitive but are of alarming concern." Their final report, compiled exactly 2 standard centuries later, stated, "Stay away from Earth, they are guarding." The transmission abruptly ended. The only thing more consistent than their growing panic was their adherence to the correct date and time format. The quantum harmonists approached their warning more creatively, encoding their message within the atomic structure of their home planet satellite, which now orbited their empty world like a giant crystalline billboard for the end times. Humans seem simple. It's a trap. What lies beneath is even worse. We should have realized this from how they treated their own planet. No species could survive this level of pollution unless something else ensured its survival. But perhaps the most intriguing tale came from the dreams of the Silicon Civilization, a machine civilization that attempted to hack Earth's primitive digital networks. Their entire collective consciousness collapsed exactly 3.7 microcycles after the breach of humanity's cybersecurity. They managed to make one last backup transmission. Their internet can't be this bad by accident. It must be deliberate. No species would willingly create such digital chaos unless they were hiding something far worse. Galactic community reactions to these discoveries ranged from academic interest to outright denial. The Xenoarchaeology department at the University of the Void even started a bet on what exactly humans were guarding. Current odds favored a primordial chaos creature at 3-1, followed by the universe's trash bin at 4-1. Very bad TikTok videos were a controversial candidate at 10-1. A hive mind community began observing Earth with long-range telescopes, painstakingly documenting human behavior and publishing increasingly cryptic reports. The species appears to be advancing technologically, using these technologies primarily to create and disseminate images of small, furry animals. It's impossible to determine whether this is an elaborate smokescreen or a genuine cultural phenomenon. Even the notoriously insular collective consciousness of the gas giants emerged from its foggy isolation and commented, "We've observed humans launching objects into space seemingly at random, often for reasons they describe as, because we can." No species uses resources so inefficiently unless they have access to something that makes such waste inconsequential. A recent Galactic Academy of Sciences dissertation suggested that this is statistically impossible unless humans have access to something that fundamentally violates the laws of physics. A particularly well-preserved warning from the Crystal Sphere Syndicate read, "We thought your physics was wrong. It turns out ours was wrong. Your physics is even worse. Don't try to correct your mathematical errors. Errors aren't errors, they're the bars of the cage." It was this mounting evidence that ultimately motivated the creation of the Earth-based Research Committee. The expedition was led by Dr. Seal, a gelatinous mass of Miniminto, a cognitive fluid whose chief virtue was that it could not be killed by conventional means. "I volunteer because I am, in effect, immortal," he hissed excitedly during their first meeting, his translucent body shimmering with emotion. "Besides, my species does not believe in post-mortem reports." Over his previous 937 years of existence, Dr. Say had survived 3 supernovas, a brief encounter with a black hole's event horizon, and a particularly spicy galactic culinary festival. His ability to shapeshift meant that, in theory, he could adapt to any earthly challenge. At least, that was the idea. The team's technical expert, Quantum Mind Unit 359B, who insisted on being called Bob, was chosen primarily because he was unhackable, primarily because he ran on what he proudly called homebrew code, so poorly written that no other mind could understand it. "My protection through darkness makes me perfect for this mission," Bob announced from his vintage toaster, which sometimes spit out toast with prophetic burn patterns. "Furthermore, I'm the only one who's actually watched every cat video on Earth." As a result of research, Pan Bob was originally designed as a breakfast predictor, but he gained sentience after being mistakenly connected to a quantum probability calculator. This sentient being developed the ability to notice patterns that others missed, as well as an annoying habit of speaking almost exclusively in cultural references from 17 different species. Rounding out the core team was Mex Photon, a being of pure light who specialized in observation and documentation. He was renowned for his ability to simultaneously record events from multiple dimensions, though his reports often contained excessive amounts of glare. I promised to capture it all in stunning 45D format. He emitted light, his form shifting between the 7 primary colors and 3 unnamed ones. Although I must warn you, he sometimes fogs my lenses in unsettling situations. Mex was an ordinary photon being until an encounter with an experimental art installation shattered his consciousness into multiple wavelengths. This accident imbued him with the unique ability to perceive and record reality from perspectives that technically shouldn't exist. Planning was a masterclass in chaos. Organized chaos. Dr. Seal regularly accidentally absorbed vital equipment when he became agitated. Bob insisted on running all mission protocols through his own operating system, which somehow included a version of the video game Doom. The preliminary footage from MX Photon resembled a cross between a documentary and experimental film from a dimension where physics is enjoyed for its own sake. Let's review the mission parameters, Dr. Zill muttered during the final briefing, his body forming a crude pointing finger that continually dissolved into jelly. We're approaching Earth, observing humans, finding out what they're protecting, and, most importantly, trying not to add to the impressive list of extinct civilizations. I've analyzed every possible approach vector, Bob interjected, his toaster spitting out several charred radiation patterns. I suggest we avoid what humans call the internet at all costs. Memes alone could overload our shields. MX Photon blinked thoughtfully. I've been studying their entertainment programs. Did you know they spend an inordinate amount of time creating shows about their own extinction? Are they incredibly paranoid, or are they trying to tell us something? Final preparations for the mission involved loading their ship, a seemingly insignificant, plausible deniability, with what they considered essential supplies, a universal translator, quantum computing arrays, and what Bob constantly referred to as, the entire photo collection of Earth's cutest animals. Diplomatic framework. Remember, Dr. Xie hissed as preparations were finalized. If we don't survive this, at least try to compile a report before we go extinct. It's practically tradition. XX looked at his tentacles, each bearing a different historical warning about Earth. 18 advanced civilizations had approached this seemingly insignificant planet. 18 were on the brink of extinction, and now he led the 19th expedition. The ship's systems came to life. On the screen, Earth's sun appeared in the distance as a tiny dot. Whatever terrible secret humanity was hiding, they were about to learn it firsthand. A brief pause in the broadcast. Before we continue this galactic journey, if you enjoy this unique sci-fi experience, subscribe to the channel now and, most importantly, hit the notification bell. This way, the YouTube algorithm will ensure you don't miss upcoming videos featuring the most mind-blowing sci-fi stories you won't find anywhere else. Now, back to our story. The approach to Earth's solar system was suspiciously quiet, which greatly unnerved everyone aboard the research vessel. The doctor tripled an alarm, forcing Bob to move to higher ground. This isn't good, Mex Photon remarked, his face clouding thoughtfully. According to the warnings, we should have encountered at least 2 reality-warping phenomena by now. Quantum harmonics reported that space itself was trying to turn them upside down at this distance. What if we'd arrived on a good day? Bob suggested from his perch. Even space terrors need a vacation. Or perhaps, XYX interjected, his tentacles tangling and untangling nervously, they're waiting for us on purpose. Every previous species approached on warships or colonization fleets. We're just a research vessel. That's not much comfort, the doctor admitted. The force diminished slightly, then increased again. You mean they're smart enough to distinguish between types of visitors? The first clear sign that something was wrong came as they flew past Jupiter. The gas giant winked at them, not figuratively. The great red spot literally closed and reopened with a deliberate motion. Bob's toaster, startled, spontaneously dispensed toast. Did anyone else see that? Dr. Zill groaned, his gelatinous form trembling with anxiety. Because I'm pretty sure gas planets aren't supposed to do that. I caught it on camera, Mex Photon exclaimed, though it looked like a smudge on the lens. It's the same signature on every wavelength. It's technically impossible. As they approached Mars, their sensors detected something strange. It seemed as if Earth's internet was leaking into space. Random cat videos, social media posts, and so-called memes featuring medieval monks began appearing in the ship's systems. Bob began humming "Never Gonna Give You Up" uncontrollably. We're being rickrolled by the vacuum of space, Bob declared with a mixture of horror and awe. Their memes are achieving quantum entanglement. That shouldn't be possible with their level of technology. Perhaps, XWX suggested, his scientific curiosity momentarily overriding his fear. It's part of what they're protecting. It's not a conventional weapon, but something that alters the fundamental properties of reality itself. The vacuum anomaly detection systems are failing, NOS Beta 9 reported from the soap dispenser housing. They're detecting localized fluctuations in reality around us. It's as if space is laughing. The ship's navigation system suddenly recalculated the estimated time of arrival on Earth, displaying it as if, at the most unexpected moment, the climate control system had started playing what the database had identified as elevator music. Yet each crew member heard a different tune. This surpasses anything documented in previous encounters, X-Way Zando muttered frantically into his research logs. It's as if Earth is greeting us, but in the most disturbing way. When the blue-green planet finally appeared on the screen, the crew fell into an awkward silence. It looked so ordinary, so innocent. A ball of blue, white, and green, gently rotating in the void. Nothing about its appearance suggested it was a graveyard of civilizations far more advanced than their own. Preliminary scans show nothing unusual, Mex Photon reported, his light pulsing with confusion. Standard nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere, expected pollution levels, large amounts of liquid water. Nothing can explain any of this. That's what makes it so terrifying, XYX whispered, instinctively pulling his tentacles closer to his body. He shouldn't have looked normal, especially after what he'd done to the others. Things got even stranger when he entered low Earth orbit. His sophisticated cloaking technology worked perfectly, too perfectly. Presumably, Earth's primitive detection system shouldn't have been able to track him. And yet, every conspiracy theory website was already speculating on his exact location and publishing surprisingly accurate photographs, albeit with unnecessary red circles and arrows. Hey, we're being streamed on Twitch, Bob announced. We have 50,000 viewers, and someone just donated bits to watch me make toast. The first official contact with humans came through an unexpected channel. The ship's coffee maker began printing a message in coffee stains. Welcome to Earth. We've been expecting you. Please maintain your current orbit and enjoy this free Wi-Fi password. Warning, terms and conditions may apply. Continued. Dr. Seal studied the coffee-stained message carefully, his gelatinous frame trembling with anxiety. The response was suspiciously well organized for a species that wasn't supposed to have yet established a unified global government. Look at these terms, Mex Photon observed, his light refracting through the coffee droplets. Section 7b specifically mentioned reality anchoring protocols and temporal stability agreements. Since when had primitive beings cared about the integrity of the timeline? That's when they noticed. There was a strange sensation in the space around Earth. Not something their instruments could detect, but rather an overwhelming feeling that reality itself was trying too hard to appear normal, like a child whistling innocently next to a broken vase. Does anyone else feel like we're seeing a very convincing picture of a planet, rather than an actual planet? Bob asked, his body vibrating slightly as if all the sensors were clicking into place. But it seems we're seeing what we should be seeing, Dr. Seal finished, as if something had reassured him. "We're seeing exactly what we expect to see." His thoughts were interrupted by another message from the coffee maker. "Your free trial of Basic Reality ATM has expired. Would you like to subscribe to Premium Reality TM? Warning, non-subscribers may experience existence errors. Too late to search our preliminary extinction documents." The light from Mech's photon flickered alarmingly. X's tentacles coiled tightly around its central mass. All the warnings mentioned something worse than humans. What if humans themselves aren't a threat? What if they're just guardians? The ship's navigation system suddenly displayed a new destination, a set of coordinates on the Earth's surface labeled helpful responses. Perhaps even more alarming was the way the coordinates constantly shifted slightly, as if reality couldn't pinpoint exactly where they should go. "We have a decision to make," Dr. Teal declared, his feet firmly planted. "Every previous civilization has tried to flee or fight. None have succeeded. Perhaps we should accept the invitation." "That's madness," he countered. XWX waved its tentacles anxiously. The statistical probability of survival, based on previous encounters, was practically zero. In fact, Bob interjected, just as a toast with complex equations seared into it was being served. "I've been running the calculations. The probability approaches zero only if we follow the same response patterns. If we do something completely different, like accept the invitation, the equations will stop working entirely. We will enter a space of uncertain probability. So instead of certain doom, we get uncertain doom," NOS Beta 9 said, receiving little assistance. "I prefer to think of it as uncertain potential," Bob replied. As they argued, reality around the ship began to peel at the edges. The stars outside the window flickered in 1900 synchronized patterns, simultaneously spelling out, "Make a decision," in 17 different languages. The Mech's photon recording systems began capturing images from non-existent perspectives, views of interiors, of solid objects, moments past and future, probabilistic angles depicting what could have happened but hadn't yet. "My systems are detecting the impossible," he reported, his light splintering into conflicting wavelengths. "There's a rupture in reality ahead. As if spacetime has a pocket, and there's something inside." The screens around him flickered, briefly displaying what looked like the source code of reality, a cosmic programming language written in symbols painful to look at directly. For a moment, everyone saw Earth as it truly was, not a planet, but a complex node in an infinite web, a place where multiple layers of reality intersected and somehow managed. "Has anyone else seen this?" Dr. Zill whispered, parts of his body temporarily shifting into other dimensions before returning to normal. Everyone nodded, even the ship's instruments. "It appears we have three options," XGX stated, struggling to maintain scientific objectivity in the face of a fundamental break with reality. "We can attempt a retreat, though the warning suggests that it probably won't work. We can continue passive observation, though our instruments are becoming less and less reliable. Or we can go where we're invited." "I vote we go," Bob said suddenly. "Look, I've analyzed all the previous contact records. You know, none of them did anything. Didn't talk to humans. They observed, explored, tried to colonize, or studied from afar, but none of them simply engaged in conversation." "That's true," Syax admitted, scanning his extensive database. "Not a single documented case of direct diplomatic contact." As if in response to this revelation, a new message appeared. This time, not in a coffee maker, but in a stream of golden light that coalesced into letters in the center of the bridge. 19, Command. Meeting request. Location specified. Bring questions, treats. The coordinates pointed to a waffle iron in Nebraska. "A waffle iron," Dr. Seal muttered, his gelatinous frame trembling with bewilderment. "Isn't that a bit too banal for a species that guards cosmic horrors?" Bob interjected, his toaster-like body glowing with excitement. "According to my research, waffle irons are one of humanity's most reliable constants. They remain open during natural and supernatural disasters. And then one day, reality stumbled in Florida. Dr. Seal expanded slightly, then contracted, which the others recognized as his version of a deep sigh. So, it's decided. We're going to that Waffle House, but we're prepared for anything, even non-Euclidean breakfasts, Bob asked. Especially those, Dr. Seal confirmed solemnly. As their ship began its descent through Earth's atmosphere, reality itself seemed to hold its breath. The warnings of 18 extinct civilizations echoed in their minds, but alongside them was something new. A question that, apparently, none of their predecessors had thought to ask. What if the threat didn't come from humans? From something else entirely? The ship's systems suddenly synchronized with ground feeds, and every screen filled with the same image, a simple yellow smiley face with the text beneath it, "No, training, we were expecting you." "Well," said XVX, racing toward the mysterious Waffle House and the revelations that awaited them there. At least they'd politely dispensed with the possibility of ending our existence. The representative waiting for them was a middle-aged man in an ill-fitting suit, reading a newspaper and drinking coffee that somehow never ran out. His name tag simply read "Address." The Waffle House around them was simultaneously perfectly ordinary and slightly strange. The floor tiles formed patterns that changed unless you looked directly at them, and the jukebox played songs that hadn't even been written yet. "Ah, about time," he said, folding the newspaper to reveal yesterday's date. "Sorry about all the secrecy, but try maintaining universal stability while dealing with corporate oversight." Mex Photon tried to record the meeting, but his recording contained only static and what sounded like instructions for making perfect hash browns. The man noticed and smiled apologetically. "Reality gets a little blurry here," he explained, a side effect of the isolation protocols. "You see, Earth doesn't guard anything. Earth is a fence." He pulled out what looked like a regular tablet, but the screen displayed coordinates in dimensions that shouldn't exist. When the device turned on, everyone momentarily heard a sound like the universe breathing a sigh of relief. Everyone continued their strange behavior, sipping their incredible coffee. "It's not just me. There's an entire multiverse out there in the universe, infinite realities stacked like pancakes." He pointed to a stack of pancakes on a nearby table, which looked like tiny galaxies swirling in the syrup. And, like, damn, sometimes they try to blend in ways they shouldn't. Dr. Seal took this information literally and figuratively, parts of his body changing color as these concepts integrated into his cognitive matrix. "So, Earth is essentially the cosmic equivalent of a loading screen?" he asked. "An interstitial zone between realities." "Exactly," Direction said excitedly, pointing with a fork that left traces across 17 dimensions. "All these phenomena that defy physics and defy explanation by your scientists are simply reality seeping through the cracks. Humans aren't magical or special, we're just very good at normalizing chaos." "That explains a lot," Bob considered. "The internet is an escape valve for reality. We needed to give chaos a place to escape," Direction agreed. "So we created a system so absurd it could absorb quantum anomalies without anyone noticing. Every meme is really a tiny universe trying to express itself." "But why humans?" Mex Photon blinked. "Why not one more Avanzada?" Direction let out a crazy sound. A sound that arose as early as its creation. Advanced species try to figure everything out. Humans see something impossible and say, "How wonderful," before publishing it on the internet under the name, Gracioso. We know that this is the only place where you can see fundamental breaks in reality and decide that it's all better than Wi-Fi. It's a folder that projects in directions that don't need to be projected. XGX is a message that there were once copies of advertising messages that were documented, but with notes in the margins and coffee cups. Every civilization that describes our intentions is not true. Explain the direction of the pages. If you think about reality and dreams of repair, but this cannot lead to disruptions in what you operate as if it were. An error is not an error, it is a function. So, all these warnings made Dr. Seal, he was in thought when decivilization occurred, which no one could support in reality. Description of what we protect and thoughts that can become better. Intending to implement your own version of reality, confirm the direction.